Hey y'all, welcome to a brand new series of videos that we're going to do in regards to Parkland. Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, February 14th, 2018. That whole incident, all right? In this series of videos, we're going to detail different various announcements that was made particularly by a former sheriff, Scotty Israel, and all the different abnormalities, all the different impossibilities that Scotty Israel details. We're going to go into detail about that. And we're actually going to break down his little announcements almost sentence by sentence. Trust me, it is chock full to the brim of mistakes. Scotty Israel and his announcements, and we're going to go through them one by one. All right. This particular video is going to be in regards to the whole gas mask situation. All right, and we're about to jump into it. But before I jump into it, I just want to make sure that everybody understands. I don't know what happened at Parkland, all right, on that particular day, and I don't claim to know what happened at Parkland on that particular day. It's too many variables. It's too many factors, too many witnesses, and they're all contradicting each other. All right. So I'm not claiming that I know exactly what happened, but what I'm saying is that Scotty Israel is guilty of, if nothing else, complete utter retardation. All right. Has not even the slightest clue as to what even took place at Parkland, at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas that day. Has not even the slightest clue. So it's interesting that he tried to get his job back and he failed miserably. He tried a couple of different times, failed miserably at it because nobody wants him around. All right, he's bad news, and you could tell just by looking at him. All right, it's really quite interesting, but what's more interesting is that people don't thoroughly call him out on all his mistakes. People have called him out, people have called him a liar, people have called him basically all sort of names. But the thing is, nobody's thoroughly called him out on every last single one of his lies, and that's why we're going to go into it right now. All right. We're going to break it down into segments. So this first segment, as you're looking at right now, is an announcement that was done by former Sheriff Scotty Israel, I believe on February 15th, if not shortly thereafter, in which many of the details should have already come to the surface, especially for a Sheriff Scotty Israel. He's the one who's supposed to know, and this is the reason why he's telling the public of what he knows. All right, so we're about to start it off, and Sheriff Scotty Israel is going to dive right into it and start telling us about masks, particularly gas masks. So let's go ahead and run it.
Contacted almost 3,200 students and 200 staff and faculty. We do have 7 people that still remain in the hospital. Thank the Lord that we have not added to our list of casualties. I wanted to clear up some rumors, innuendos, misinformation that might be out there. The killer never was in possession of a gas mask or any type of smoke grenades. We did recover a balaclava, which for those of you who might not know is just a face mask with eye slits.
We had a fire alarm this morning, a practice fire alarm as well, just so we've been working on it, trying to see how the exit, see what's
Did y'all have any other fire alarms that went off after?
No, just when he threw the smoke alarm, when he threw a smoke bomb in the building and the fire alarm.
Oh, he did?
Yeah, he threw a smoke bomb. He put a gas mask on and threw a smoke bomb. No, just when he threw the smoke alarm, when he threw a smoke bomb in the building and the fire alarm.
Oh, he did?
Yeah, he threw a smoke bomb. He put a gas mask on and threw a smoke bomb. That's the first thing he did. To the first floor? On the first floor.
You can tell us your response to what happened today in Parkland.
Well, let me give you some new information. The gunman was wearing a gas mask and had smoke grenades. Some new information. The gunman was wearing a gas mask. He had smoke grenades. He hit the fire alarm.
To clear up some rumors, innuendos, misinformation that might be out there. The killer never was in possession of a gas mask or any type of smoke grenades. We did recover a balaclava, which for those of you who might not know is just a face mask with eye slits. Again, there was no gas mask or no gas grenades at any time.
So he had a gas mask on and he threw smoke bombs into the hallway? Is that what you're hearing?
I cannot confirm that he actually threw them, but that is the implication with the information that I got from the FBI.
All right, y'all. I wanted to stop the video right here in this particular point and discuss the fact that we have two people. One's a senator. One was something of a witness on scene. He saw nothing, Coach Andrew Medina. The other one is a senator, Bill Nelson, who very shortly got voted out of the Senate not too long after this incident. All right. And these two particular people are discussing gas masks, and they're not being ambiguous when they're saying it. They're saying gas masks. All right. When it comes to Bill Nelson, he actually put out these details because he received word directly from the FBI. As far as names go, there are no names. Don't worry about names. But he got it from the FBI, which is something that will talk to Bill Nelson. All right, apparently, and give him all the details before it gives everybody else the details. So he got his information from the FBI, and they could have been wrong. I'm not sure why they would have been wrong. But they could have been wrong. They told Bill Nelson before they told everybody else. Bill Nelson came on and told everybody on TV exactly what he thought had happened. Now, according to Sheriff Scotty Israel, that was not the case. That was just rumors and innuendos. So it's a possibility that Bill Nelson got his information from someone who is wrong, who got that wrong. All right. Now, in reference to Andrew Medina, the video kind of cuts off right there, but if you were to go and research the rest of that interview, Andrew Medina, he does explain that he saw none of this. He didn't see guns shooting. He didn't even see a gun. Right? He was not present at that time, but the reason that he thought it was smoke grenades and a gas mask is because he had clearly heard people speaking over the radio system about the fact that it was a gas mask and smoke grenades, which would imply that they were watching the cameras at that very time. Who's they? Couldn't tell you. Have no idea who they is. All right. On record, the official narrative says that nobody was watching this incident take place on surveillance cameras at that particular time, that did not happen. Perhaps Andrew Medina is a schizophrenic liar. Perhaps he's a compulsive liar. I couldn't say, but he said that he heard people over the radios talking about that they saw someone in a gas mask. All right. So there is confusion as to whether or not it was a gas mask. That being said, I want to take a listen to people that I know you've heard from who describe a mask, but they don't describe a gas mask. So that adds a little bit to the confusion. All right, it becomes a little bit more confusing. Without further ado, here's a couple of the faculty, Stacy Lapel and Ernest Robespierski, who describe a mask, not a gas mask. So here we go.
This is strange because he's in full metal garb, helmet, face mask, bulletproof armor, shooting this rifle that I've never seen before.
19-year-old young man with trouble. I didn't know that at the time because he had a mask on, so I didn't know who it was. I just saw a guy with a gun shooting at my kids. Tried to save as many as I could. Unfortunately, I didn't get all of them.
But I wanted to discuss, because of course there's all sort of controversy around this exact topic of the mask / gas mask. And I want to reason it out because there's a lot of people who obviously would argue and debate over this particular aspect. All right. Now, I want to discuss that, of course, Sheriff Scotty Israel said that there was no gas mask at all. That did not take place at Parkland. He said that actually what they found was a balaclava. All right, which is kind of interesting. Now, if you don't know too much about balaclavas, like Sheriff Scotty Israel said, basically it's a ski mask. It's a mask with eye slits so you can see through it. All right, but it hides your face for various reasons. Maybe the weather, maybe you don't want to be seen. All right, so there's confusion. Some people might say, oh, well, the gas mask, that was actually, that was confusion. That really didn't happen. People thought that there was a gas mask, but there was never a gas mask. In fact, what Scotty Israel said was the truth. There was a balaclava. There was no gas mask. And if you actually look into it, which I did recently, you'll note that there are balaclavas that have gas masks. Some have gas masks that are installed directly into them. All right. So you could see where the confusion wouldn't lie. Was it a gas mask? Was it a balaclava? During all the commotion, perhaps it could be confused simply because there are balaclavas that do have gas masks. What did the balaclava look like? We're not real sure. I bet you there's pictures of it and stuff like that. But okay, regardless, balaclava or gas mask, there was a mask, and that was the detail that was definitely expressed by everybody. There was a mask involved. There was a mask there. All right. Now, where that whole scenario falls apart, unfortunately, and a lot of people caught this instantaneously, is when we finally did get surveillance pictures of Nicholas Cruz actually on location that day. You'll note that we didn't really get much for video. Now, there should have been a whole bunch of video in regards to this incident, but there wasn't. We didn't hardly get any video, and we got some still frame pictures of Nicholas Cruz in the building. And what a lot of people caught on to, and we're going to wrap this up on this detail, is that Nicholas Cruz was not wearing a mask. Okay? So take that in. A mask, balaclava, gas mask, does not matter. Nicholas Cruz was not wearing one. All right? And for, those out there who are, I guess you would say, apologists and stuff for the government, and they believe every official narrative that ever was, okay. The only way that you can make this possible is if Nicholas Cruz, mid-shooting, somewhere during the shooting and the escapades, he went ahead and he stopped what he was doing. He took off his ball cap. He kind of put his gun to the side, took off his ball cap, put on a balaclava on his face. I don't know, put his ball cap back on after that, and then proceeded to keep shooting. Now, if you think about that for more than a moment, you realize that that does not make any sense. Not at all. All right? Because here's the thing. If Nicholas Cruz had a balaclava with a gas mask built into it, how would he know that why would he know that he needs a gas mask going in this situation? All right? And if he knew that he needed a gas mask going in the situation, why wouldn't he put it on at the beginning of the situation? Why wouldn't he do that first? It just kind of makes sense. Like, oh, he totally forgot that he needs a gas mask. He brought one, but he forgot. And then like midway through the incident, that's when he puts it on. Another reason why you would put on a mask is to conceal your identity. That's pretty much the only other reason why you would put on a mask, to conceal your identity. Meanwhile, that doesn't make any sort of sense when you consider that he'd already been caught on surveillance camera all over the place. There's no reason to, midway through a situation, put on a mask to conceal your identity. That doesn't even close to make sense. All right, what I'm leaning towards is that there was never a mask put on. Nicholas Cruz didn't put on a mask, meaning all the witnesses who attest to there being a person with a mask on, yeah, they saw somebody else. All right, and it's not only for that reason, but there's a million reasons why one might suspect that possibly Nicholas Cruz was working with somebody else, possibly that there was somebody else involved in this shooting. However, it wasn't a day out. I mean, it was on the same day when you had people like Sheriff Scotty Israel saying, no, Nicholas Cruz acted alone, and there's no doubt about that. He acted alone, period. He's the only one. All right, so that in and of itself is outrageous. Nobody should ever talk to Scotty Israel without bringing up the fact is that what he said was impossible doesn't make any sense. All right, that by itself is alarming. But um, we are going to continue on to the next video in which we detail more of this particular announcement, as you'll find that it's just unending mistakes had by Sheriff Scotty Israel, to the point is where he may as well be a criminal. All right, you can't get it this wrong without trying.
We heard that there were questions that the media had about where our school resource deputy was. Our school resource deputy, Deputy Peterson, was on campus. He is armed, and I believe the campus at Stoneman Douglas is approximately 45 acres.
All right, y'all, we're gonna stop Scotty right there. I think it's pretty important. What he just said is that, of course, and we all know this, a Deputy Scott Peterson was on campus. Now, this is a day later. All right. He fails to mention, and you're going to notice that he fails to mention that there was, 8 other deputies that were literally on campus while shots were ringing out. And just basically watched Nicholas Cruz, or maybe they turned their head or something. And Nicholas Cruz eased on out the door with the greatest of ease. All right, he fails to mention this, and here's the thing: he's kind of acting like a sheriff right now. He's kind of giving us details as though he's an authority. That's what's taking place. You might say, well, he might not have had all the details at that particular time. I mean, it was only a day out. Here's the thing: you shouldn't be making these announcements if you don't know what happened. All right, you shouldn't be calling out one deputy if there's a chance that other deputies were on scene. All right, so but the problem is that, okay, it became known fact that it was 8 other deputies on the scene, right there on campus, right there around the building. It became known fact, I don't know, months and months later. After months of waiting, that's when it became known fact that there were other deputies there on the scene. All right. So as far as Scotty Israel, oh yeah, maybe he didn't know the next day. Maybe he had no clue the next day. But actually, let's go ahead and play a clip of much later during a commission safety meeting in which Scott Israel says it again. The same thing. Why don't we go ahead and roll it real quick?
At this point, based on what I know, I don't have any reason to believe that any member of our agency knew there was an active shooter. Peterson, not only did he not go in, but he never got on the radio and advised this agency there was an active shooter.
I believe that there's one instance that you'll see in some of the video where a deputy, and I can go through and find his name, but...
So just to help out on this, because you're going to get information, we can't get bogged down in this, but okay. Peterson is standing at the east door of the 1200 building. He says there's shots fired, and he puts it out over channel 8A that there are shots fired. Responding deputies without 8A would have heard that or were in a position to hear that, and I can tell you that when they arrived on Holmberg Road, there are several deputies, it is verified by their body cameras, or it is revealed to us through their body cameras, that they heard shots being fired, and that is before Peterson said anything about staying away or gave any instructions to the deputies that would have indicated to them not to do anything other than go in.
So before we go any further, we only have 2 options to choose from right now. All right. Option 1 is that Sheriff Scotty is mentally challenged. He can't be bogged down with any sort of details. He has not the first clue of what took place, where his personnel was, nothing. He doesn't know anything. That's option number one. That he knows zero. All right? I'm surprised he knows how to get out his front door in the morning. Option number two is that Sheriff Scotty Israel, well, he's trying to hide something. He's trying to hide something, but what is it? That's the $1,000,000 question. We're going to have more questions, so let's just go ahead and continue.
45 acres. He never encountered the gunman. He never encountered the killer. Every day we're learning something more and more about the killer. Through search warrants, we've uncovered electronic devices and cell phones that tell us a little bit more about him. I will not be speaking specifically about either of these devices as the investigation continues. We have uncovered at the Broward Sheriff's Office that we've had approximately 20 calls for service over the last few years regarding the killer. We will continue to follow up as we do with any investigation. We want to try and find out why this killer did what he did, what we could learn from it, and how we could keep our kids safe moving forward. So every one of these calls for service will be looked at and scrutinized. If we find out, like in any investigation, that one of our deputies or call takers could have done something better or was remiss, I'll handle it accordingly. At this time, I'd like to bring up Rob Lasky, Special Agent in charge of the Federal Bureau of Investigation.
Y'all, we're going to go ahead and stop it right there. We'll hear from FBI Agent Rob Lasky a little bit later on down the line, but I wanted to stop the video right here and go ahead and wind it down. Of course, we're going to go over much more in subsequent videos about Sheriff Scotty Israel and his little announcements. All right. But I just wanted to finish on that note. Notice how Scotty Israel alludes to electronic devices and a cell phone, stuff like that. That was one of the major points of this whole shenanigans, is to crack down on people's cell phone devices and their electronic devices. That was a major point of what was taking place here, right? Mind you, Scotty Israel talks about their warrants on the cell phone device and the electronic devices, in which that he's not gonna detail it right now, but certainly those quote findings did come out shortly thereafter. All right. He also mentions a 20 some odd different calls for service that they received in regards to Nicholas Cruz prior to, over the years leading up to this incident. Now, we made a video a long time ago regarding the calls for service that were received. I mean, they just put out a big number because it is kind of a big number, and they left it at that. Meanwhile, there's much to be said about the nature of these service calls in which that he's talking about. All right, he's kind of setting everything up in order for Nicholas Cruz. He's about to lay the groundwork for just how Nicholas Cruz is so-called guilty by nature, that there was a lead up to this, and that Nicholas Cruz obviously was going to eventually shoot the school up. Meanwhile, when he's discussing all of these things, for some reason, he finds it pertinent to share this with us. And like I said before, at this moment in time, and for weeks and weeks and weeks, Scotty Israel does not know the first thing about what even took place during the incident. Not a clue. All right. He has no idea what personnel was around the building. Right. And then come to find out shortly thereafter, oh, all the surveillance footage that should be in every high school on every inch. All right. Oh, that somehow was messed up. Oh yeah, there was too much smoke and blah blah blah. No, there is no footage. All right. So if there is no footage, you don't know that you had deputies on the scene. All right. Your deputies were literally watching the door as Nicholas Cruz makes a moonwalk out. How in the world? You see, you're discussing things that don't matter. You're talking about 20 service calls approximately. You're talking about electronic devices. Meanwhile, you have not one clue. There's no way to know that Nicholas Cruz was working on his own. There's no way to know that he did this on his own without the surveillance footage. Right? Without actual witnesses. And as it turned out, there wasn't no witnesses. All the witnesses were bogus. All the witnesses, so-called testimonials, contradict everything that you're saying right now. All right, and we're gonna get into it. We'll keep an eye out for those videos and stuff, and I'll try to re-upload. I'm gonna have to track down and find the very old video that we made about those 20 service phone calls in particular, because I don't want to reshoot it. Anyways, I'll holler at y'all and let me know what's good in the comments stuff. I appreciate y'all. Until next time, it is October right now, currently the 27th, 2019.